initially peaceful, and local media have described many demonstrations rapidly spiraled into fights with the police, led by hundreds of what they call far-right protesters. Far right, far left, far middle, far arse, if you ask me. And in Rome, fireworks were shot at the police trying to disperse a central plaza. Now, the mayhem is believed to be led by the right wing. Here we go, Birdie politics again. Forza Nova party, which called for the population to resist what it called health dictatorship and curfews. It's nice to see the people of Italy fighting back, but please stop the violence, looting or destruction of property. They use that against us. Another example of fighting back is a lawsuit was brought to the courts a couple of months ago and took place on the 21st of October. And the people who put it in said they've been waiting to hear from the judge on the decision. From California legislator Kevin Kiley's blog, today a California Superior Court ruled in favour of me and fellow legislator James Gallagher in our lawsuit challenging Gavin Newsom's abuse of power. The judge ruled Newsom violated the Constitution by issuing Executive Order N6720. More importantly, she found good cause for an injunction restraining the governor from issuing any more unconstitutional orders. Now, the court rejected Newsom's extraordinary claim that a state of emergency centralises the state powers in the hands of the governor. If only Trump had used that state of emergency, we wouldn't be in this mess now. And this is the unlawful basis on which Newsom had collapsed California's system of checks and balances, issuing 57 executive orders and changing over 400 laws unilaterally. And this ruling now marks an end to Gavin Newsom's one-man rule. And it makes clear that the laws of the state of California do not countenance an autocracy under any circumstances, not for a single day, and certainly not for 8 months, with no end in sight. The ruling is tentative, meaning Newsom has a few days to try to persuade the judge to change her mind, but it's rare for a tentative ruling to change. And while Newsom can appeal, we are confident the decision is on solid legal ground and will stand, they say. Good stuff. This is an article I came across that carries much of the warnings given out by this show for many years now, and all laid out in one particular show called Clowns in Panic. And it's nice to see others are now seeing the dangers unfolding in front of us and highlighting it. So the article states it's now so obvious, but no one has more to gain with the lockdown and more to lose with its lifting than big tech. The lockdown destroyed small and medium-sized businesses, especially those that are in private hands. These were the real targets of the lockdown. Private property. Collapse these businesses and you go at the heart of capitalism, private ownership. Once these were closed by government edict, the agencies then took control and put in place procedures that ensured these companies could never cope with the cost and layer of compliance required. Lacking scale and financial resources, many simply closed for good. But that was the goal all along. Yep, we warned of that in Clowns in Panic. This was a billionaire's game, and all the millionaires were going to get harvested. And that is what has taken place. And this remains so until only large businesses remain, those that will bend to the will of government and profit from this reduced competition. And large tech companies are in a unique position to exploit this vacuum because they can become the single source providers of everything. Hello, Amazon. And dictate time and price, points of sale, everything. Which explains why they have the most to lose from lifting the lockdown, because now everything has been priced into their stock. And their CEOs are not useful idiots, but willing accomplices of this dark arrangement, with those working in bureaucracy to further their push into everyone's life. So if you want to travel, get used to testing, tracking and vaccines. These carriers took money from government, and now the government calls the shots. Whenever you take money from government, they own you. The same with big tech. They are now locked in tight to ensure that everything reported by the media via Twitter and Go-Ogle states that the virus is here to stay and people need to get used to it. The election gives them a perfect opportunity to trial run so many new initiatives that require we stay locked in and vote by mail. Next comes electronic voting from an app controlled by Apple. Group fairly close to us has an app controlled by Apple. There you go. The article said this is pure evil and why tech must be broken up. There are a lot of people beginning to question that big tech has been conspiring with this great reset, assuming they will fall within the Klaus Schwab's fourth industrial revolution, so they will be fine. They will certainly make fortunes from tracking devices, swapping to digital currencies, where they hope to replace the banks, for if you own nothing, you will also have no bank account, and banks will no longer be lending. And since governments will adopt modern monetary theory, they will no longer need the banks to sell their debt, since there will be none. When we look at the major bank stocks, the only one to peak with the Dow in 2020 was JP Morgan. When we look at Deutsche Bank and HSBC, they peaked in 2007, reflecting their problems. Goldman Sachs peaked in 2018, reflecting its problems in Asia. Behind the curtain, there is a pressure to not bail out the bankers again, and this is especially true in Europe. Now, the reason being is Bitcoin decentralization program. This is what we warned of, clowns in panic, as you will not need banks for fresh air tokens. The article said this leaves the idea of Schwab as very, very attractive and therefore crushing the economy and forgiving all debt to banks, so you will also own nothing. Forgive all outstanding debt and property ownership, Piketty's top recommendation, and you then just rent the place where you live from the government. There are major holes in this theory, but those aside, this explains why big tech will replace the banks. They fail to connect the dots that if you also own nothing, then that would apply to shareholders. Oops. And does that mean that big tech CEOs simply rise to the top like Russian oligarchs and the companies become their personal wealth? We did warn about it. Some good news this week, as apparently there is still a pulse amongst liberty-minded citizens in one small North Carolina town that turned out in mass to defy the city's attempt to mandate mask requirements. When told they had to wear a mask to participate in the meeting, they refused, and the city council and local police backed down in front of the angry crowd. And this is the kind of action it's going to take across the country to stop this medical tyranny. Waynesville leaders backed down from a proposed local mask mandate Tuesday night after nearly 100 people packed the town hall to voice their opposition. Just 100 people. Oh my. Imagine if it was thousands or tens of thousands or millions. I told you, they cannot control the people if they all get together. Now, tensions rose before the meeting ever began when the assembled crowd, who were being held in the lobby until the doors opened, learned there wasn't going to be enough room for them all in the town ballroom. And those wishing to speak were told to fill out forms and wait until their name was called. We all know how that works. So this didn't sit too well with many in the crowd, who demanded the meeting be moved to the sidewalk outside so that everyone could see and hear it, trudging off a loud chant of "take it outside." Town staff and police officers eventually quelled the crowd and convinced them that waiting for their turn to speak was the only option. Another uprising ensued after the waiting crowd was told they couldn't come in without a mask when their turn rolled around. The vast majority weren't wearing a mask, given the whole reason they were there in the first place was to speak against the proposed mask mandate. Now, some claimed exemptions for religious and health reasons, but others simply said they were not going to wear one and it would violate their rights to be denied entry to a public hearing on that grounds. In the end, masks were offered, but not compulsory. All people must do this, not just North Carolina. We have the power, not them. Their illusion of power is only derived by the complicity of we the people. Stop complying, stop social distance, and increase social dissidence.